And we are back right away. I was speaking tonight with UFOologist, local Sudburyan Michel Deschamps here joining us once again, and we're speaking about sightings in and around Sudbury and also in the north of Ontario and beyond, areas beyond. How's that? If you have any questions for Michel, any sightings you want to share, you could reach us here at 705-673-6538, 673-6538, nightfrightshow@gmail.com. Michel, before we took the break, I had mentioned that I'd like to come back and talk a little bit and go back into the Manitoulin Island story. Yeah. You can go to Michel's website, which is www.newford.com, and see pictures there of the landing. It's just incredible. On what page would they find that, by the way?
Physical evidence.
Physical evidence?
Yeah,
okay.
UFO physical evidence. Because it was funny. I'd heard that Q92 was doing a report on crop circles with Melanie Dahl, and then.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and
you're playing something else besides a tape loop? Oops, I shouldn't have said that. Taking a shot at Q92 because their program is.
Yeah. Well, they had. Well, there was a show. I guess I got word of it, and what happened is I took my ghetto blaster to work, and I actually tape recorded the show while I was during work or my break or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I called them up because I said, "Oh, crop circles in Sudbury, whatever." So she gave me the name of the guy who actually had taken photos, and it was all kind of cloak and dagger. I met the guy in his apartment, and he gave me the photos. Actually, he gave me negative strips.
Okay.
And when I said, okay, I'll try to look at them, and I couldn't really make out anything at all until I got the pictures developed.
Just let me I should mention that you're listening to CKLU 96.7 FM. How's my radio voice tonight? And www.cklu.ca on the internet, and of course, if you're streaming, you already know that because you're already on the website. But folks, we are indeed streaming, and I apologize for interrupting you. I should have did that right after the break. Sorry, man.
It's okay.
You are not listening to Q92 or Big Daddy.
No. So I get the pictures or get the negative strips developed, and to my amazement, it was not crop circles. It was circles. Donut-shaped indentations, actually. Indentations is kind of different. See, the area is limestone. And this is near Spring Bay, Manitoulin, like outside of Spring Bay, on the west side. And you can't see it from the road. You have to walk in almost quarter mile. Mm-hmm. And the area is like 80 to 90 feet across, flat limestone, covered with maybe three quarters. Oh,
a phone call.
Wow.
Good evening, you're on Night Fright. Hello?
Hi, Brent?
Yeah.
Okay, I just have a quick question.
Sure, fire away. Go ahead.
Okay, so we all believe aliens pretty much exist, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If we ever encountered one,
yeah.
Who would win in a fist fight?
Who do you think would win? Do they even have fists? How do they pick their nose? Have you ever thought about that?
Well, tentacles, fists, they're all pretty much the same.
Yeah. Do you have a serious question for Michel?
It is, actually, yes.
What's your serious question?
It's the fist one, actually.
Uh-huh.
Well, in a lot of the abduction cases, Travis Walton, for instance, best example ever, from the movie Fire in the Sky.
Hey, you should Google Travis Walton. I think it would be beneficial.
Actually, there's a link to his website from my website on the links page, and he basically, when he got up from the table and realized where he was, believe me, he wanted to throttle one of them or whatever. He came close. In some cases, you're totally incapacitated, either telepathically or whatever. I mean, you could have your fists up and ready just to punch him because they look so frail, right? You figured, well, you can knock him down, no problem. But apparently they just freeze you, just like suspended animation. In a lot of abduction cases, even where two small children were abducted, the parents would be totally frozen there, unable to do anything, but still able to breathe, able to see. So they have this advanced technology where you couldn't, you could try to fight them off or whatever, but I think they could overpower anybody.
Have you ever had any experiences in seeing anything strange in the sky that you might think out of the ordinary?
Never really with UFOs, but usually I've actually had some cases with paranormal.
Far away. Go ahead.
Oh, well, actually one time I was up at Inverhuron, and I found out, I actually saw orbs flying through the woods with me and my friend.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
That is really, that's rare,
Yeah.
my friend.
Near which lake?
Inverhuron. I'm not sure
Oh.
exactly where.
Do you know where that is,
Near-
Michel?
No, I'm not sure, but I know there's a team of people by Lake Ontario that actually are on the lookout to photograph orbs going in and out of the water or above the water or whatever.
Do you think that may have a UFO connection, an alien connection?
It may. We're not
Who knows,
sure.
huh?
It's not like
Speculation,
It's not.
right?
Well, yeah. It's not like the aliens are coming right down and setting us out and setting us straight, and say this is what's going on. This is what we're doing. This is what belongs to us. This is something that's totally outside of our realm. We don't have that kind of clarification. So that's where a lot of the speculation falls in. Is this UFO? Is this ghost? But it's there. It's happening,
is,
and it's being seen. It's
Yeah,
not. It's not.
So
Fire
just
away.
one quick question before I leave.
Sure. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on anal probing? Go.
Anal probing, eh?
Yeah.
That sounds like an anal question to me. Listen, we have call identical here.
Yeah.
So thanks for the call, but you know what I'm saying, pal?
Yeah.
There's no sense doing that.
No, I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Because
Hey, kids, eh? They're having fun.
Well, it's like a lot of people will insinuate that all this abduction is about sex, but it's not. It's not sex at all. It's the study of the reproductive system, and it's very painful and very traumatic to the people who are going through it.
Very much so.
It's like when all these people that are saying, making reference to sex and all that stuff, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Because
making fun of Holocaust survivors. It's in that same realm.
Or
Yeah.
somebody suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. When you sit in, like I spent the weekend in Sault Ste. Marie with the mother, who was a former registered nurse, retired, and the two daughters. One was 26 and the other one was 35 and married. Some of the stuff they related to me, which I have on tape, I mean, it's pretty sensitive. When you're talking about, the fetus being removed and the placenta is still there, of course, all abductees believe that whatever was taken away was something that was initially put there.
Yeah, and these are real documented cases, folks. This isn't just something.
This is not
that's,
something that's
made up.
made to make people laugh or whatever. I mean, this is deadly serious, and it's deadly serious to me. It's probably the only thing that I consider very, very serious.
Yeah.
Apart from if you're in a marriage or a relationship, I take that seriously too. But this stuff has gone on for a long time, and it will continue to go on until maybe some major revelation will come about from the part of the aliens.
Let's flip forward now and Manitoulin Island. And those pictures were amazing. By the way, www.newforce.com, and you can see the pictures of the landing there. They're actually incredible photos. They're crystal clear, and it really does show where
Two objects landed.
landed.
At first, I thought maybe
They look like donuts with a hole in the middle.
Yeah,
but
the
it's very
gravel.
obvious.
The gravel was blown away.
Yep.
In donut-shaped indentations. I mean, the rest of the gravel was there, but the gravel was blown away in two donut-shaped indentations. And the thing that I found really peculiar is, I thought, well, okay, we had some people saying, well, somebody did donuts with a three-wheeler or whatever. It couldn't have been that, because we even took a broom before, because one of the circles was visible when we first got on site. I mean, don't forget, it had survived a winter, because we went there in June of 91, and it had taken place in mid-September 1990, just around election time.
It had even gone through winter.
So we go over there, and first of all, it's like not even visible from the road. I mean, like I said, it's a quarter mile into the woods, surrounded by trees, in this large clearing. If it was a hoax, I would have placed it right next to the road so people would see it as they drove by. There was no way to anybody to know. Now the farmer, or you could call it a farmer, it's not really a farm, but anyways, he would check his property once a week, and he came upon the two rings, and then showed this to one of his friends, Donald Langtree. These people are now passed on. And so yeah, the gravel was blown away. Limestone surface is really hard. There was some caked mud, or you could tell it either rained or whatever, and it dried up. But the edges of the outer perimeter of the circle was really, really hard. I mean, we tried to sweep it off. I mean, we swept off the loose gravel. Like I said, we got there. One circle was visible. The other one was not so visible. But we used the pictures in relation to where the location of the second one was. So we started using a broom, and it came really hard when we came to the center part, because there was gravel in the center. That's like a center button part, and then the gravel on the outside.
What do you think would have caused the, I won't call it a burn, but the melting?
It wasn't heating at all. And melting,
I guess?
it wasn't really, I couldn't really tell, because the thing that was funny is that I didn't see any residue holding the sand and the gravel together on the outer perimeter of the circle, or the middle. But it was so hard together, I needed a scraper just to scrape it off. And I didn't want to damage the circles. I mean, we took some photographs, videos, whatever, and we just, whatever loose gravel was on the limestone itself, we either swept it in towards the middle or totally out of the outside of the circle. So we had the two perfect donut shape, but they weren't perfectly circular. Of course, it's irregular because the blast or whatever caused the gravel to get blown away is not going to be irregular, leaving a perfect cookie cutter type circle, you know. So we looked at that and it says, man, this is not fake. I mean, how could you fake this? I mean, it was so hard on the, and you knew exactly where the edges were delineated from the rest of the circles.
Yeah, and the pictures depict that also.
Yeah. So I was like, this is cool. And then the hairs at the back of my neck stood up, and I only had that feeling one other time, and that when I had my sighting at the radar base. After we had it closed down. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll have to delve into that.
So we're just standing there, and we're taking all kinds of pictures from different angles and stuff like that. Now, the guy that I was with wasn't, to me anyway, wasn't really reputable. And so I knew I could branch off and stand alone on my own doing this investigation, because I was just getting bad vibes from this guy. But basically, being there, when he experienced that too, and I was more adamant about saying these are physical landing trace. I wouldn't call them ground markings or any fancy word like that. I just came right out and
No, I agree with you.
Happened there.
I agree with you. Now, didn't something strange also happen on your way there? A police officer pulled you over? Was that time?
No.
I'm sorry then. Okay,
No.
but I know there was a story where a police officer pulled you over or came to you and said, "What are you doing?" And he related a story to you also?
No.
Have I got it all mixed up?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
No, it's one of those stories from UFO.
Where's my coffee?
Yeah. You probably had too much of it.
Maybe.
No, one of the stories I have on my website where people can just click on the audio file is when UFO Dawn went to, after all these sightings were taking place in New Sudbury and whatever, him and his buddy, at the time, the only one of his co-workers actually believed him about all these sightings. They would together go with telescopes in hand, binoculars, and they'd go and place themselves on some of the highest points in New Sudbury and look over the whole town and the whole New Sudbury area while looking for UFOs. And that's one of the incidents where the UFOs, there was two UFOs that came one after the other to suck power off the power lines. And on their way through the bush with this equipment, they got stopped over by a cop. And Don, him and his wife, had bowled several years with police officers and their wives. So he mentioned a few names, and he said, "Oh yeah, I know him," and that put the police officer at ease. What they were doing there with all this equipment, going through the bush and stuff. And that was one of the nights when one object came down for half an hour, sucked the power off the power lines. The lights only dimmed. The UFO took off, went up 5 miles high, just parked there. The second one came down for another half hour, and this time all the lights in New Sudbury went out. And we're talking like 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, so of course most people are asleep.
They
wouldn't even know the difference, but they were up there, looking with binoculars and a 600 power telescope.
Wow.
And they seen this, and then they went down to the Maley Drive extension, the place where they have that was the closest area where they had the hydro set up. They rang the bell there, or whatever, spoke to the guy, And the guy says, yeah, this is the second time this week that they've done this. We're not supposed to tell the public that these UFOs are coming down sucking power out. But it's happened, and the first time...
And this is from a police officer?
This is from the guy who works at the hydro station.
Oh, from the... Well, even that, yeah, it's more credibility.
Yeah. You know, and they I'm sure they log all this stuff. I mean, I've purchased, like, I don't even have anything about hydro workers or whatever, but I do have a book that I ordered about fire lookouts and all the sightings that they record.
Oh, is that right?
Fire lookouts have a really isolated job. You know, I spoke to a fire lookout from the Timmins area, Kirkland Lake. He's seen a lot of sightings.
Wow.
You know, and they're supposed to log them, but they won't readily go out and talk about
you're crazy or something.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and you get all that crazy stuff, you know, and people want to fire you. Oh, he's losing it. He's drinking.
I mean, but the North is, the mines are a major attraction. I mean, there's mines in Kirkland Lake, Timmins, you know, who knows, maybe some of the precious metals like gold might be something that they need. I mean, I in some of the TV movies, I mean, gold would be like the one element they're looking for to power their ships or whatever.
Let's talk about your... Okay, go ahead. No, we'll do that, and then we'll talk about the radar installation.
Thinking about gold, this is one of my favorite Disney movies, The Cat from Outer Space. It's really good. You used to see the ship. The ship is really cool looking.
I haven't seen that movie.
But it's a cat. I have it on VHS. I'll have to lend it to you. It's really good. You can't find that on DVD.
No.
But gold was the thing that he was looking for to power his ship. But anyways.
Let's talk about the base.
Yeah, the base.
Just to, if you do have a question for Michel, and
a serious question.
Yeah, but even the young man, at least you're listening, and it is evoking some questions.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, you were brave enough to share that orb thing with us. So
that's
at least you're listening and getting entertained at the very least, and probably some education at the same time.
Yeah.
705-673-6538. 705-673-6538. And nightfrightshow@gmail.com. Let's get into that radar installation.
Radar base. Yeah.
Around what era was that, Michel?
That was 1990. Actually, we're coming up on the date.
Was that right?
I had my sighting on October 9th.
Okay.
1990. And it was just by pure coincidence. I mean, like I said, I wasn't looking for it to happen. I was working at a dealership in Hanmer at the time. And I met UFO Don that same summer.
Okay.
And he had shown me 3 originals. He's given them to me since then. He had given them to me 3 original 1967 flying saucer magazines, more reputable than the tabloidish ones that you can get nowadays called Sightings or whatever. And so having access to a photocopying machine, I was making this is way before they'd given me the magazines. I was photocopying them at the dealership. And so it's pretty convenient, photocopying Flying Saucer magazine, and I have a sighting the same night. So I walk out, I do all the 3 magazines, I walk out of there around 8:30, I guess it was. Yeah, 8:30. Walk outside the showroom.
What's the weather conditions like? Clear,
clear, crisp. Like the leaves, I think, had already fallen off. It's October,
It's October,
And my car was parked on the south side of the building, and I'm walking sort of diagonally towards the southeast, towards my car. And all of a sudden, I'm looking south, and I see this, what looked like Jupiter, like at its brightest, just bright. And I said, oh, cool. So I keep walking to the car, and I kind of noticed, like, movement, like it's coming down. But as it's coming down, it actually is getting brighter. So I said, so it's coming down at an angle towards my eyes, 45 degree angle.
Yeah.
But it was still, well, my best guess was it was at maybe 5-6 miles out, maybe. I mean, it was over the crests, the crest of the hills.
Do you feel it was one of these motherships you had described before?
No,
this was a smaller.
No, later on I found out, my estimation was that brought it down to 40 feet, just about.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this object, and it was just like pure white, but these rays just coming off it. Like it was like, not rays like, it was like shooting off rays or anything like that. It just looked like Jupiter at its brightest. You know, it's like a super bright star, maybe 4 times the small, almost 4 times the size of what Venus is outside now.
Wow.
And so I'm looking at this thing, and it's coming down. So I walk back to the showroom and I tell one of the salespeople there, and he comes up to the window. I mean, he was actually inside the showroom, and you could, at the angle that we were set up, he actually got a view of it, shrugged his shoulders and walked away. I said, well, shit. I said, I'm going to go down, I'm going to go and see what it is. I was heading home anyways. This dealership, there's no, it was Toss Automobiles. It was on top of a hill in Hanmer at the time. Mm-hmm. And of course, you drove down to my house on Ferran Street. Turns out there was a murder this week on my street. And it had been like such a quiet place,
There's a murder
before.
in Sudbury?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not the first one, but yeah, on Ferran Street in Hanmer, obviously, yeah, first one. Just like, I think I know which house. I mean, it's down to my street. But anyways,
Okay.
we haven't lived there since about maybe 9 years now. My parents sold the house.
Okay.
So anyways, I was heading, I got in my car, heading down the hill, and I'm looking over my right to the south. And between the houses and the trees, I could see this object. So I saw it almost until I got to the house. I went in there, ran in like an idiot, and says, Dad, I think there's a flying saucer flying between Sudbury and Hanmer.
Son, are you drinking again? I can just hear him now, eh?
Well, he was chuckling with the neighbor was there too. My dad was chuckling a little bit. He says, I'm grabbing my binoculars and I'm going to go and check to see what this thing is. Now, stupid me, I went and got back in the car and drove to the next street over, which is even longer than Ferran Street. Teresa Street goes even further out to the south. Okay. And then it branches off into the woods. There's a dirt trail that went into the woods.
Okay.
And so, I don't know why I went there, but I figured, well, what the hell? So I went there, of course, no leaves on the trees, whatever, and
so
I
you
see
can
the
right
object.
through the bush.
Yeah, I went there, got out of the car with my binoculars, and I see the object. Now, by then, there's no radiation light coming off of it. It's just a little white egg.
And that's it.
I'm looking at it. And I'm making sure, because at night you never know. Your eyes play tricks sometimes with movement and stuff, but the thing actually moved from side to side, left to right, about 3 times, and then it stopped. I'm looking at it, and it blinks out.
Were you afraid at all? Any fear?
Yeah, just adrenaline was flowing.
No
I mean,
kidding.
The hairs of the back of my neck was standing up, and I'm kind of shaking a little bit, but holding my binoculars, and all of a sudden it blinks out, and I says, "Oh crap! There's got to be a branch in front of it or something." Okay. So I'm crouching down even lower. No, still not there. And then there is another Ontario Power substation to my left, my far left, and I'm looking south, and they had just installed these almost like football stadium lights at the 4 corners of the complex there. So I'm trying to make sure I'm not confusing what I'm looking at with the lights there. And so I'm looking, and all of a sudden the object reappears, but it reappears lower than where it was.
Oh.
And I says, oh shit. And then I'm getting pissed off because I'm looking through trees and stuff, and I said, I need to be somewhere higher, where there's no trees blocking my view. So I said, I get back in the car, I'm taking a chance. I'm driving up to where if you go left, like I'm driving east, and if you turn left, you're going to Capriol. You're going north of Capriol.
Okay.
If you turn right, you're going down Radar Road. Well, I went straight ahead on Côte Boulevard. I kept on going. You cross the train tracks and you go up the hill. I went up the hill.
Gives you a bit more elevation.
I parked there, and I had a clear view of the whole valley.
So what was going through your head?
Well, I was just like freaking panicking because I couldn't see the object then. It was no longer there to my right. I was driving up the hill.
Okay.
And I said, shit. So I get outside of the car, and I was shaking by then. So I actually had my elbows on the roof of my car. It was a little 85 Chevette 4-door. I bought it brand new back in 85.
Sure, I remember
And
those. Sure. Yeah.
I just kept stabilizing my binoculars, with my elbows on the roof, and my legs were about to give out. and so I'm looking from the southwest, panning towards the southeast, towards the direction of the radar base, and I hadn't seen anything yet there. So I'm looking there because I couldn't see anything at all at first. So as I'm panning over to the radar base, then I see this big pinkish red light pulsating, like irregular pulses, just like a heartbeat kind of. And it's
Hold it right there. We're at the bottom of the hour, and this is it's kind of like one of those like. Yeah. Where they used to, the hero goes over to cliffhanger theater.
Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't think of it. And we're going to come back. We're going to find out what the heck is going on there.
Yeah.
That's a wild story, bud.
Oh man, it's.
We're going to come back with that. I just want to let you know next week, Michel Desrochers is here, ex-Siberian, and she's done all kinds of ghost hunting and what's the word I'm looking for? She's had all kinds of paranormal experiences. She's cleared houses, things of that nature. That's next week, right here on Night Fright at 10 o'clock at night. Just to let you know that coming up, we were in November, I'm going to have a special on. It is 45 years. 45 years already President Kennedy was assassinated. Wow. And that he was assassinated November 22nd, 1963. Yeah. And the whole month I've dedicated to President Kennedy's researchers of the assassination. And there's no question it was a conspiracy. And what I'm going to lay out for you with all the shows during the month of November is the researchers and how we've come to know that, in fact, it is a conspiracy. Everything's been documented, researched, and even the U.S. government, when they had a study in the late 70s, early 80s, came out and said that, in fact, there was 2 shooters, one from the Grassy Knoll, folks. I bet you didn't know that, eh? The U.S. government came out and said that. So that's coming up in November, and we're going to be back in a moment, and we're going to talk with Michel Deschamps right here on... Michel Deschamps, excuse, Jim excuse. Right here on CKLU 96.7 FM, www.cklu.ca.
You're listening to Night Fright, Wednesday nights from 10 to midnight on CKLU 96.7 FM, your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy radio. And now your host, Brent, Holland.
And we're back with Michel Deschamps. Michel Deschamps, not Deschamps. Too mame Michels, man. We're speaking about UFOs tonight in and around northern Canada, specifically in the Sudbury, that whole area, and the whole area that we're in, North Bay, right over to the Sioux. And just before the break, we were talking about Michel's sighting just over near the base.
Yeah.
And let's get back to that. So you were seeing this pinkish glow.
Pinkish red. Actually, it was like a light source.
A light source
but
itself.
It was right. The way I could describe it is like it was not really pulsing like a heartbeat, but very irregular. But it was like pinkish red in color, and it wasn't like blinding. I mean, I just looked at it, and from my orientation, I knew it was exactly where the base is located or was located, and because I could see the lampposts along the highway, along the radar road, so I knew where it was.
Nothing was scrambled. There was no other vehicles in the or aircraft, I should say.
No. Well, later on there was a plane that I saw, a small plane, and which brought me back to where why did the object blink out and blink back on? In some cases, when a plane or jets would come in close proximity to where a UFO would be hovering, the UFO would shut itself off, like lights out. And then the jets would go and say,
just kind of go into a stealth mode.
Can't report anything, there's nothing here. The jets leave, go back to the base or whatever. The UFO turns itself back on.
Just like that.
And slowly lifts up and whatever, like a lot of cases like that. So I assume that's why the UFO that blinked out, the plane might have been in the area, but I never heard the plane. But anyways, this was much later.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
So I'm standing there, I'm looking at this object, and I said, man, I got no witnesses. So, stupid me. I didn't stay there to see how it left. I mean, it could have shot straight up. It could have just, careened over somewhere else and just, whatever, like a hummingbird, they zoom over to different towns. So I went back home getting witnesses, and couldn't find anybody. Finally, I got my mom or my younger brother. Somebody came with me. By then the object was gone. I said, shit. So I brought them back home. I had my blinkers on. I mean, I drove down. When I went to get whoever was at the house, I mean, I had my blinkers. All my blinkers were on. I'm just like, if I would have had one of those strobing lights that cop cars have, I would have put one on. So I went home, and and when we got there, there was nothing there. So I dropped them back at the house. And I drove actually all the way to the town of Falconbridge. I went up the radar road.
Really, yeah?
And couldn't see the object at all, and kicking myself ever since. Well, I've had other sightings subsequently to that. So I mean,
was there anybody else that mentioned they had seen it?
I did get a call a few years after from somebody from Cape Girardeau actually reporting it, but never left a name, never left
nothing.
a forwarding number, whatever, and it's like, crap, it's like, you know.
Because you're afraid of the persecution.
Well, you know, I'm kind of stuck between that kind of, you know, not having to report because they're going to be called like a loony. I mean, I've been called a loony or resigned to the loony label in the Northern Life once or whatever.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It says, yeah, resigned to, you know, and they said all kinds of things. My girlfriend broke up with me. I wasn't even dating
Where the hell
at the
did they
time.
get off saying that crap?
Yeah, it's because of UFOs? No.
They just
So-
dismiss you like that?
Yeah, they said, no, yeah, my relationship went bad, and I wasn't even dating for a long time because of UFOs. I mean, I didn't want to have, I knew I was going to get flack.
Yeah.
And I says, I am not going to put any potential girlfriend through that kind of bullshit.
That crap.
If I'm going to take the
Yeah.
flack, I'll put my freaking metal jacket on, and I'll, you know, throw,
And
dish,
dish
you know,
it
throw
afterwards,
anything you
yeah.
can dish out. I can take it. But,
If somebody has a sighting,
yeah.
they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? Like, they're a little bit nervous, and you keep anonymity and
Well, yeah, if they
Okay.
want that, yeah.
that safety factor. Okay, so folks, if you're listening and you're out there, you've seen something, and you want to discuss it with Michel, you could reach him through his website, which is www.newford.com.
Yeah, or you can
And-
call me at home, too.
Oh, okay.
know?
Do you feel comfortable giving out your phone number?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, you know, the
And
four-
no stupid calls, eh? Come on.
I
folks.
can tell them a mile away. I had one crank call, I'd say maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and I can tell when somebody's got a smirk on their face and they're on the phone. I can tell right off the bat. I mean, I had the one call I had once. There was two little kids. Says, "How do you catch a UFO?" I don't know. With a UFO net. That's kind of cute, you know. But
Yeah,
you know,
I
that's
know.
passable. But yeah, but just you know. No, my phone number, well, even the old phone number was always posted on TV. I mean, if I made national TV, I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
You know, crank calls. Yeah, I got call display, so I can always call you back and harass you.
And not only that, even if you use, I think it's star 67.
Yeah.
Or something,
Oh, yeah, a lot of
doesn't
times I
matter
get- no.
because the phone company keeps track of who's calling who, especially post 9/11.
Yeah.
You can't get away with that crap anymore.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Yeah, so my phone number is 670-2759, 670-2759.
Area code 705.
And before you make that call, if you want to make sure, just peruse my website and check out the information that's there, because it's there for your benefit. I mean, I've had 23 sightings. I couldn't care less if I had no more sightings. I haven't even skywatched for the last 5 years. You know, leave it to the skeptics to have their own freaking sighting.
Sure.
And then they can come and clamor to me or, you know, shiver in their little corner somewhere. You know, having finally seen something that they can just shut the hell up and, you know, if they want to be traumatized, that's fine. That's, you know, me, I've gone through the motions.
You've gone through that.
You know, and I've second guessed myself. I went through my whole my entire checklist, and it was still a helicopter. No, helicopters do hover, but they don't go from 0 to 10,000 miles an hour. Not that I ever saw anything in my stuff saw that and take off that fast, but you know, there's things I can verify. There's things you can look into,
And you can help them with all those questions,
Yeah.
and just have a conversation, just to let them even know that they're not
Yeah,
alone.
like some of the people whose audio clips I have, some of them, they couldn't care less. They said, yeah, I want my name up there. It doesn't matter. I mean, I know what I saw. Other people, I would ask them, especially if they're in a certain position in society, they say, well, no, I prefer not having my name there. So I say, okay, so now I'll use your initials or something.
You've got some really interesting papers, my friend, right in front of you. Why don't we dive right into that?
Yeah, well, I made some notes concerning the 2003. Actually, I wrote a little bit about. Well, I just would read this because this is fascinating. I mentioned this before.
Fire away.
It's
Go ahead.
the U.S. Fireman Guide of UFO Disaster Control, and
There's a guide?
well, it's actually the Fireman's Guide to Disaster Control.
Oh,
and there's
I
there's actually a chapter on UFOs in there.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's because at a UFO crash site, there'd be a lot of things you'd have to worry about: contamination, nuclear, radiation.
So at least they'd have a blueprint or something to go to in case something like that does
people
occur.
milling around something where you could get
that's a good
like
point.
harm. You could get like harmful
Radiation, whatever.
radiation
Yeah.
poisoning or whatever,
Yeah.
and crowd control and blacking out the news. So, anyways, I copied this from well, it's UFOs at close sight, U.S. Fireman Guide of UFO. Actually, it's just regular disaster control, but this is from about the chapter on UFOs. Which,
Okay.
So the Fire Officer's Guide to Disaster Control by William M. Kramer, Ph.D., and Charles W. Bami, J.D., is a totally serious book which is found in all fire and police department libraries across the United States.
Wow.
In June 1993, a new chapter from pages 458 to 473 was added to this book. Bami himself saw UFOs fly over Los Angeles on August 26, 1942, and they were subsequently fired upon by ground defenses which killed 9 people.
Whoa.
During the Korean War, Bami was security coordinator for the Chief of Naval Operations. The guide is published by the Delaware State Fire School and made available through the Fire Engineering Book Service at such and such phone number. The Fire Officer's Guide to Disaster Control can be found in U.S. local libraries. The Dewey Decimal Number is 363.378. The ISBN number, ask the local librarian for help if you have trouble finding this.
Does Canada have a parallel? Do they have something similar?
I haven't really looked into it, but one of my friends, I haven't seen him in years, but since grade school, his dad was a firefighter, fire chief in Hanmer.
Okay.
So maybe I should
yeah.
find out, see if the Canadian counterpart has the same. I would be surprised though, but they basically wrote this chapter because it would be in the event that they come across
a disaster or something.
Yeah, a crash site.
And
okay.
especially post 9/11, with it,
Yeah.
you really have to have a protocol, something to fall back upon.
Exactly, and believe me, just like the military, they seem to have everything laid out so that they have certain protocols to follow.
Exactly.
So it says, this is the extract from the U.S. Fireman Manual. The Fire Officer's Guide to Disaster Control, UFO Hazards. The 2 principal hazards noted with relation to UFOs have been attributed to powerful electrical fields which they can project in a general or localized area, and the psychological effects they have produced on the general populace or individual contacts. Regional power blackouts. It has long been suspected that UFOs have the capability of blacking out a city, state, or many states by exerting a force field sufficient to overload the circuits of public and private utility installations.
Wow, it's right there in print.
Few things are more disturbing than to be plunged in pitch darkness without warning. It is dangerous for masses of people. It paralyzes cities, blocks, highways, stops trains, leaves elevators suspended between floors. In general, it simply plays hell with the modern way of life. The granddaddy of all blackouts to date was the Stygian blanket that fell over 30 million people in the northeastern corner of the U.S. during the early evening rush hour period on November 9, 1965. Relay services that were supposed to automatically
Flip over.
the load in case of failure in one area to an alternate source malfunctioned. Military communications relying on public power without alternate backup systems also failed, but communications were operable to make a quick public announcement that there was no military emergency. Fireballs over Syracuse, the blackout connection. Airplane pilots reported that UFOs were being chased across Pennsylvania about 4:30 p.m.
Is that right?
And electronics and construction engineers who were driving in the area of the Syracuse airport saw UFOs moving about 5:30 p.m., just prior to the Great Blackout. A veteran flight instructor who had been flying over Syracuse on a training flight saw a glowing globe over the power lines leading to the Niagara Falls generating plant. Hundreds of others saw the glowing object in the sky on the night of the big power failure. That was on November 9th. On December 2nd, about 700,000 persons in Texas, New Mexico, and Mexico also had their power fail. It was said to have originated in a regular failure in El Paso. Then on December 5th, 3 nights later, 40,000 homes plus military installations in the area of East Texas were also blacked out, overloaded. Missile grounds, White Sands, Fort Bliss, Holland Air Force Base, and numerous airports were all blacked out with no emergency power backup. And this was when President Johnson's telephone call to the White House in Washington was cut off.
They must have flipped. The military must have flipped in 65.
And
It's the Cold War, too.
Yeah.
And they must have thought, oh my God, we're under attack or something.
now I wrote something here about the 1965 power blackout. almost a year has passed. I said, dear readers, actually I wrote this July 6, 2004, right after the 2003 power blackout.
Yep.
Almost a year has passed since the event of August 14th, 2003. On that day, a massive blackout incapacitated most of Ontario and parts of the northeastern U.S. For 17 hours, Sudbury residents were left without power. For some, it was a first, but for many, it brought back memories of another major power outage, the Great Northeast Blackout, which occurred at 5:16 p.m. on November 9, 1965. In regards to that case, it took authorities only 4 days to come up with an explanation for the power outage. Almost 6 months went by before an official answer was given for 2002's blackout. Why did it take so long this time around? What was most striking to me was the fact that both explanations were very similar. In a 1965 event, authorities claimed that a broken relay was the cause of the cascading effect which resulted in the power outage. In the February 13, 2004 issue of the Sudbury Star, it was written that a software glitch was blamed for the blackout of 2003. Another very interesting similarity which needs to be mentioned was that UFO sightings were reported before, during, and after the lights went out in both incidents. Grant Cameron, a Canadian ufologist who spoke at that year's Ozark UFO conference in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, has found evidence of this UFO connection in government documents located at the Lyndon B. Johnson Library in Washington. In an article entitled "The 1965 Northeast Blackout, UFOs in the Johnson White House," he wrote, "While at the Johnson Library, I was looking for files on J. Leo Borisa and on the special quote-unquote facilities division to see how it fit into the Kecksburg UFO crash." There was a crash in 1965 in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
What I learned about Borisa while at the library was that he and the organization that he ran has also been heavily involved in the 1965 blackout of New York City. Like the Kecksburg crash, the New York City power outage had a strong tie to UFOs. There was a lot of evidence that showed UFO sightings being reported in connection with the New York City blackout. In addition to the reported sightings prior to and during the blackout, there were reports that indicated that UFOs might actually have caused the blackout. If true, this would have support from other historic UFO cases that indicated that electromagnetic effects from UFOs could cause power outages. According to the records of the Johnson Library, Borisa, using a direct to the Joint Chiefs of Staff Command Center, did direct the blackout emergency from his bunker at Mount Weather. A couple of weeks after the event, he wrote his final report to Allington about what had caused the blackout. The letter hinted at the possible role of UFOs. From the November 23, 1965 Borisa report on the blackout, we read, "The lack of specific information at the time, plus the state of confusion that existed in the northeast U.S., the fact that sabotage, enemy action, and unknown phenomena were all considered possibilities."
Can you give us just a brief synopsis of the rest of the letter?
Basically, it just sort of copied information about the 2003 blackout. And it just basically says that my own suspicion is that I suggest that UFO activity should be examined as one of the possible causes for the blackout, and satellite data may provide proof of this possibility.
And they never disclosed the data, actually.
No, well, only the UFO Roundup and UFO Roundup and Filer's Files are two online newsletters that come out weekly, every Friday, and there's links to those sites on my website. And
do you think there'll ever be disclosure?
Well, disclosure is taking place in the States. The Disclosure Project is in full bloom, although we don't hear too much about it up here. But it's headed by a former surgeon by the name of Dr. Stephen Greer, and he's been able to have, we're talking witnesses that at one time or another throughout their careers have seen or have done something about UFOs. And they include people from the CIA, the DIA, the military, NASA, people that control satellites. I think I mentioned once to you before, one guy whose job was to man all the satellites or whatever, was in charge of satellites.
That's right, yep.
He basically said that half the satellites that are in orbit are actually aimed outward. For what reason? Most satellites, if not all of them, we assumed were all communication satellites,
Yeah, that's what I always
TV
thought.
transmission satellites, spy satellites looking at other countries. Why would
But facing in.
Facing in,
Yeah.
towards the Earth. why would over half of the satellites face out? What are we looking out for?
What are we afraid of?
Exactly. So that's a good question right there. So that's an excellent witness testimony that came out. And there's people from the FAA that have spoken out. One particular case having to do with a Japan Airlines encounter with a large walnut-shaped UFO near Anchorage, Alaska in 1986.
Last time we were on with Don
Ledger.
Thank you. Yeah, and we were talking about Shag Harbor. But when I asked him, did he think that the UFOs and the aliens were friendly, he speculated that no. He thought they were up to no good, so to speak. How do you feel about that? He thinks they've got evil intentions. He kind of creeps me out. He creeped me out actually when he said that. Yeah, and I thought, oh.
Me, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, it's the abduction cases are very traumatic. The experiences. I mean, be taken away from everything that's familiar to you.
Oh yeah,
you know,
and have
that could do done. You know, that could do any tremendous damage to anybody that's not used to that or whatever. Not that you could get used to.
No,
that.
I understood what you meant.
But I don't know I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I don't think there's. I mean, if it was a question of invasion, I mean, good God, if there are interdimensional travelers or time travelers, I mean, they could easily, even today. I mean, like what that kid was talking about, fist fights and stuff. I mean, us going against them, it would be like monkeys going against a tank. Or maybe an aircraft carrier or a fully loaded F-18 fighter. I mean, you don't stand a chance. I mean, yeah, we may have brought down some UFOs with an electromagnetic pulse device, which I know exists. I read about it somewhere.
But you got to figure,
at the
too,
same
that
time, it's just,
as our technology goes forward, theirs must, too.
well, yeah. I mean, especially, they've had 4 billion years, head start or whatever. I mean, who knows what they're able to do. I mean, obviously, like, their engines are better. The performance is extremely better. I mean, it's probably cleaner than our own. I mean, we've got nuclear subs. I mean, the USS Enterprise, the aircraft carrier, or is it the Nimitz? One of them actually is nuclear powered. But it's not clean energy. I mean, there's no clean way to dispose of the toxic waste.
That's right.
But these ships, I mean, the radiation effects that are found on at landing sites, it can only be maybe a byproduct of the propulsion system. Maybe it's not something they're purposely doing.
Do you think we're their children? We speculated on this last time too.
I believe that we're an extrapolation of them grabbing early primates, an early man.
And mixing it with their DNA?
Just tweaking it a bit to accelerate our development. So maybe, my idea is maybe they're trying to accelerate our development so that we, at one point or another in the future, will reach a certain level where they will be able to trade with them. Maybe. Obviously, it wouldn't have included abductions because I don't think not that we could do anything about it, but if they really are in dire straits and they need our genetics,
yes,
they couldn't really well come out and ask our permission. I mean, not because we'd probably say no.
Yeah, nobody wants to have an anal probe.
No, exactly, or any other probe.
Or whatever.
You've got. We're talking about things that are extremely,
well, taking a baby out too is.
Yeah, taking babies
barbaric.
or putting an implant like right behind the optic nerve, and this is one area where you can't go and retrieve it because you'll kill the patient. There's certain locations where they have the technology to put an implant in an area like that without even an incision left behind. I mean, they're able to, in the mutilation cases, animal mutilations, they have instruments that can cut between cells. We don't have that technology. That's why we bleed. When we cut through cells, we cut through everything, and that's what the blood spills out. Yeah. They are able to, almost like a zipper, be able to cut us open, and then seal us back up. Yeah,
crazy glue.
So it's like, man, we don't have that kind of technology. We wish we had. Who knows what kind of medical advancements would come out of that? Be able to, like my friend's daughter who got infected in the local hospital. I mean, we would be able to prevent that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as invasive.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's just I don't think they're here to do us harm.
let's just wrap up on a positive note.
Yeah.
See the new X-Files movie.
I haven't seen it yet,
Oh, you haven't?
but I bought all the seasons.
I think it's on at Rainbow.
Really?
Yeah, it really doesn't go into the UFO thing. It's more of a mystery. I liked it because I'm a fan of the series.
I'd be a fan too. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people were disappointed because they were expecting the UFO theme to show up.
Yes, and I didn't go in with those expectations. But
Yeah,
I
neither
quite
did I.
liked it.
Yeah, it was good.
It's an X-File.
Well, yeah.
You know, if people go in there expecting, I don't know, whiz-bang effects and everything else, well, that wasn't what the X-Files was about. The
No.
X-Files was about the mystery of possibilities
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, I liked every single episode, so it's like,
You been down to Cinefest?
no.
I had a great group of actors in here today from a movie called Run Rabbit Run this afternoon. I had them interviewed and stuff. It was all about the drug abuse.
Oh, yeah.
And it was shot in Vancouver, Canada. And the acting is just phenomenal. And I'm just going to plug it again because Saturday afternoon at 1:30, if you get a chance, go see this movie, Run Rabbit Run. And it's phenomenal. Everything about the movie is just phenomenal. It's going to kick you in the teeth. That being said, Friday night at midnight, there's a horror movie on, which I'm going to go catch too. So if you want to go, give me a call, buddy, and we'll drive over together, and we'll sit there eating popcorn in the dark.
Yeah.
Is there one last thing you want to say to the folks out there before we wrap up for tonight? And you'll be back, don't worry.
Yeah, just keep listening to CKLU and
Watch
there's-
the skies.
There's been some changes in my work life, but we're still going to manage to put something on the air.
Absolutely, without hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a regular.
And
You're-
keep your eyes to the
I
skies,
keep it that
and yeah, you know, if you're gonna, it's funny.
Sure,
You know,
go ahead. Go
Well, you know.
You know.
Make sure you don't take any drugs, whatever. And somebody, so you know, because I never took drugs before. Somebody, we were talking about that at work today, and I says, "Good God, no!" I mean, I've been offered pot, I think 3-4 times in high school, but I never took it. Never in my life, never took it. I mean, I've got
Good for you.
scoliosis, I've got
Good for
curvature,
you.
I've got curvature of the spine.
Yeah.
I got some back problems. I know, Lord, figure why I would choose like a freaking heavy lifting job at my job, but I love my job.
But you know,
yeah.
so many times we give credit to and we should, to people that have been addicts and they recovered.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here's a guy that listened to all those stories and never did it, and I think you deserve a big pat on your back. for
I'm
doing
too
that.
afraid that, you know, if I were to take the stuff, who knows how many UFOs I'd see. You know, or polka dot elephants or whatever. I said, you know.
Could open up a whole new venue for
Well,
you.
yeah, but no. When you see
teasing,
something like that,
of
it's just, you got to keep a straight head on your shoulder. And I was, my family's not into that. My brother tried it once, my sister tried it once, you know, but me, no. I mean, I take drugs, but I take drugs because they took my thyroids out back in '86.
Oh, is that right?
And I have to
didn't know
take a pill a day every morning. Sometimes I miss it, but I jokingly said to the doctor, "What if I miss it like 3-4 days in a row? Do I die?" And he says, "Yeah."
Really?
And I says, "You got to be kidding!" And I was
Yeah.
telling myself psychologically, I says, "Don't freaking miss your pill more than 4 days because you start getting a pinching sensation from the inside out in your neck." And yeah, I got a nice little cut. It looks like at the beginning it looked like a
You're
dew worm.
showing the scar to me.
Yeah, it looked like a dew worm before, so I need to I have a reminder of what I went through, you know. I went through a near drowning in Lake Erie. I mean, I could have died 20 years ago and not having had a single sighting except for the one I had when I was 9. And so I'm really lucky to be here.
Oh,
and
I think the community is lucky to have
and
you.
I think I'm here, I'm meant to be here for a reason. And, you know, it's not just UFOs. UFOs took a big part of my life, but now I want to transition to, you know, being there for somebody who's got 2 little girls who really need to have somebody in their life, and that's
Very nice.
That's another part of my life that I want to focus on.
Okay. Do you want to give your contact information one more time?
Yes, my website's www.newforce.com. That's an N as in Normand, O, U, F as in Frank, O, R as in research, and S as in Steve.com. And my phone number again is 670-2759, 670-2759, area code 705.
Et aussi, il y a beaucoup d'informations en français aussi, hein?
Oui. I was told it's the only bilingual website of its kind outside of Quebec. So the French section is a little smaller than the English side, but that's because all the terminology is in English, and I do most of my research or my presentations in English. I mean, I can do some in French. I've been to a French school twice. I got asked twice, I think, a few years back in Valcarin. So, and that's one thing I miss. I miss doing the classroom presentations. The kids have excellent questions. I always have something to bring to show them.
Yes.
And make the rounds in class, and I've got posters, laminated posters. I show what UFOs look like from around the world, and oh yeah.
I bet they appreciate having you there.
Yeah.
We're going to do the wrap-up now, and we're a little bit over, but that's okay. That's one of the beauties of
Late night radio.
Late night radio, and CKLU in particular, is that the clock is kind of there just as a guideline in most cases. And that's great. It's always been a pleasure having you here.
It's my pleasure.
And these shows are great. You know, we could go another 2 hours if we wanted. You know that.
God, days. yeah, with a sleep rest in between.
Well, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Work gets in the way, eh?
Yeah, we're not robots. I mean, we're human beings. So.
But I want to thank you very much, and I just want to reiterate, next week we've got Michel Deschamps on, and she is an ex-Sudburyan, and she's going to be coming in and talking about clearing ghosts from houses, ghost walks, all kinds of stuff like that. And coming up in November, a very special. We're going to be talking about the JFK assassination. We're going to have 8 shows on the particularly focused directly on the JFK assassination, and there was a conspiracy, there is no doubt, and we're going to have people that have come on and proved it. They've done the research, documented it en masse, and it's going to be a real revelation for you folks. If you've always heard those rumors about the JFK assassination and always questioned, was it indeed a conspiracy? The answer is unequivocally yes, it was. And these folks will present the proof. So that's coming up in November. That's it for Night Fright for Wednesday. And we'll see you next Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Thanks so much for listening. And the young fellow that called in, thanks so much for your call. See you next week, folks. Take care.